Good morning. Welcome to Market Monday for January 13th, 2024. Last week, Matt was talking about back-to-back 20% gains in the S&P 500 stock market. If you recall, that hasn't happened since the mid to late 90s. Let's dive in a little deeper. Here, we're looking at all the years the S&P 500 gained 20% or more since 1950. Right here is what happened the next year. Clearly, a lot more positive years than negative. And finally over here, these are only the years following back-to-back 20+% gains. Indeed, it is a rare occurrence. One time in the mid-50s, then not again till the dot-com boom. Bottom line is, we wouldn't put too much stock, pun intended, in anticipating what the market will do this year just because of back-to-back 20% gains over the past few years. Something else Matt talked about last week was the performance quilt that shows the performance of each asset class ranked best to worst each year. And while we usually focus on recent history like the past 10 years, it can also be helpful to do some time traveling for history and context. Here, we're looking at two time periods. On the left is, of course, the last 10 years through 2024, and over here is 2000 to 2009. Let's cycle through to remind ourselves not every decade will be dominated by large cap US stocks. First, of course, is large cap US stocks like the S&P 500. Never was the best performer and usually in the bottom half, closing out the decade as the worst performing asset class. Here are international stocks, pretty similar from a year-by-year relative performance perspective, but ending the first decade of the century in second to last place. Commodities right here, emerging markets, and bonds. So one investing principle here is that markets are open, dynamic, always changing, meaning the present doesn't look like the past, and the future will not look like the present. This is a challenge from an investment or an allocation perspective, and we're constantly having internal discussions and keeping our ears to the ground to try and deliver reasonable, quality investment solutions to accomplish your unique needs and goals. One related topic we've been talking about for the last couple of years, actually, is the role of bonds in a portfolio. One reason for the increased scrutiny, the main reason, is this. Conventional thinking says to manage the inherent volatility in stocks we're all aware of, don't just buy stocks, but buy some bonds to manage the volatility so that when stocks fall, bonds don't, which makes the stock market roller coaster more bearable. But what we're seeing is that the correlation, meaning stocks and bonds moving in the same direction, is the highest on record. One reason is that indeed interest rates have remained higher for longer, as illustrated here by the 5, 10, and 30-year Treasury rates. This goes back to the allocation challenge I was just talking about. What is the role of bonds in our strategic or long-term allocation? We don't pretend to have the perfect answer, but we will have thoughtful discussions to deliver reasonable outcomes to the best of our abilities. And today we'll leave you with who wants some predictions? Some analyst predictions. As we all know by now, analysts have an atrocious track record at predicting the next year market returns. Without further ado, here's the average prediction right here at a 12.3% gain for 2025. Seems to be a lot of concentration in the 10 to 13% gains. 120% gain up here for the trifecta of 20+% gains. A couple single digits down here, and bringing up the rear is eking out a 1.9% gain. Note, no analyst predicting negative returns for 2025. Have a great week.